Om Jnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah.
In the cycle, except for one who is engaged in bhakti bhajan. Karmani nirdahati kintucha bhakti bhajan. Except for somebody who's engaged in bhakti bhajan, everyone else is rotating in this cycle of karma, but it's being taken away from the devotees. I thought that was a profound realization that she had. And anyone who's engaged in devotional service is under the protection of the divine nature. Mahatmanastu mam partha daivim prakriti mashita vajantyananya manaso kyattva bhutitim avidim. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that those who are Mahatmas, they're great souls. And Prabhupada once wrote a letter about the devotees who were going out and doing the kinds of things that Vaisesika was doing. That is, taking sacrifice. They weren't, he said, not the long beard, long white beard kind of Mahatma. He said, because sometimes, in India we see there's an archetype of a Mahatma who has a certain look. But Prabhupada said the boys and girls that were going out and making sacrifices to help others, to spread mercy, they were actually Mahatmas. Because Maha-Atma means great soul, means someone who actually puts aside concerns for their own sense of gratification for the sake of others. To give mercy, to give compassion to others. Such persons are actually glorified in the world and in human society. Yogi yukta ushudatma vijitatma chitendriya. Yogi yuktatma. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that such a person whose senses are controlled and is able to think of the welfare of others becomes dear to everyone, and everyone is dear to such a person. Yogi yukta ushudatma vijitatma chitendriya. A person who's conquered the senses. Because the senses are actually the master of this world. Says as much in Rupa Goswami says as much in the Upadeshamrita. Vacho vegam manasakrodha vegam jikwa vegam udaropasta vegam itan vegam yogishaheta tira sarvamapimam priktivim nasishya. He says that someone who's conquered over the Vegas, or the urges of the senses. There's the vacho vegam, which is the urge to talk. The other night when I was taking an evening walk, I live in the suburbs, so I was walking by a house, and apparently they were having some kind of a party. And the door was open, and everyone was talking at once as I walked by, and I could hear the sound vibration coming out. And as I walked by, I was just imagining what everyone was saying, and what do you say at a party, how are you, and how's this, how's your business, and such. And there's a very difficult urge to control. This is a very difficult urge to control, the urge to speak. But that and the urge of the belly, the genitals, mind, anger, and words, if someone is able to control those, Rupa Goswami says, Yadavaso Pyunyam Kalvita Bhavatvanta Vibhavo Drisham Tatpandanam Apitishiti Bhakti Pranayam. That if someone hears the holy name, even if they're in the darkest of ignorance, that person can become awakened to bhakti. It's exciting. I always think of it as like you have some magic wand almost, and nobody can see it, but and when you touch people, but you can see the result. I was beginning to say, and then I interrupted myself, that today we went on Harinam Sankirtan, I went up to Dharma Prana, Prabhu, and we went down the street just from the temple, and we met so many nice people that are hankering for knowledge and for some kind of spiritual touch in their life. I look for people when we're walking along, because it's obvious that we're there, isn't it? When you go on Harinam, or if you wear a dhoti down the street, and tilak and everything, it's obvious you're there. So people know you're coming. Living entities aren't stupid. They're aware of their environment. So I always just look and see who's noticing. Because if they're not noticing on purpose. They didn't look because They don't want to be waking up. Like Prabhupada used to say, it's impossible to wake up someone who's pretending to sleep. Right? But if somebody's actually sleeping, you can wake them up. But when we walk down the street, when the Harinam Sankirtan goes down the street and we're walking down, I always just watch people's eyes. And if they look at me, then I make an exchange with them. This is one of the things that I always do. I'm always watching. Did they look? Because if they look, it's amazing how powerful the eyes are. Because if you look at someone, there's a connection spiritually. Because who's looking out from inside here? Somebody. There's a perceiver, and that's a spiritual person. And it's amazing. And there's a soul inside there. Ascharyavat pashyati kascharena. Ascharyavat vadati tataiva chanya. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. And that conscious being called the soul is amazing. Amazing. There's nothing more amazing in the world than the soul, actually, who's looking out. And you are a soul. We are souls. I mean, we can actually just be enthralled by the fact that we're conscious. That's a whole absorption in and of itself. What to speak of that there's other conscious beings besides us who have their own individual consciousness. Isn't that amazing? And Sankirtan really is the opportunity to go out and interact with those other conscious living entities. And then there's the science of Bhagavad Gita thrown into it because, I hate to say thrown into it, but if we're studying the science of Bhagavad Gita along with this interaction we're having with people, there's a way in which we can gauge what's happening and why it's happening based on the information we have. Just in the Bhagavad Gita, there are 3 modalities: goodness, passion, and ignorance. And then, of course, there are combination and permutations of those 3 modes. But those are general influences that take place. Is that music coming from next door?
Yeah.
One thing, I have a theory about Kali Yuga. It's a noisy yuga. It's not just the yuga of quarrel and hypocrisy. But I've noticed this. I did an experiment to see if I could actually go anywhere in the world where there was some noise disturbance. And I'm not bothered by it anymore because I realize it's impossible to go anywhere where there isn't. I mean, if I thought I could actually stop it, then I'd be disturbed by it. But I'm not, because wherever you go, there's always something. And so the science of Bhagavad Gita takes us gives us vision, actually. There are lots of causes, good causes in the world, but there's one great cause, and that is emancipating the soul, giving the soul an opportunity to go back home, back to God, or taking it one for oneself. That's unusual. Everything else is just common cause. It's just a normal, of course, what everyone else does, controlled by the 3 modes of material nature. So, studying the science of Sankirtan is a lifelong pursuit. And if we're studying Bhagavad Gita from the perspective of how to help others, starting with myself, we have to actually help ourselves first, and then we can help others and give them knowledge. I met people today who were starving for spiritual knowledge. There was a young woman who was walking along. She saw us. She saw the Sankirtan party. She saw me. She saw Mangalarti Dasi, because we were walking together, distributing books behind the Sankirtan party. And she noticed, and then I knew, here's somebody who's interested. I mean, she looked. A lot of people didn't even look. They just walked by. But she looked, and then I talked to her for a while. And she wanted the books, and she's actually our banker. She said, "Oh, you were this fun. I handle